So hello and welcome to the very first episode of the On The Knuckle podcast, a snowboarding podcast focused solely on the contest side of snowboarding, along with the shit chat that goes along with it. We are two Olympic judges taking you through competition previews, judging analysis, and behind-the-scenes insights from the World Cup Tour and beyond. And we're running this first season of On The Knuckle all the way through to the end of the Olympics, and then we'll probably take a little bit of a break because both myself and Beggsy will be brain fried, and I'll be on my honeymoon as well. So we're going to start the season with a bit of a look back at last season, look at the World Cup, the World Champs, and various other events that have been on the cards, like the inaugural Snow League event and, of course, X Games. And then over the next few episodes, we'll go into some detail on the big air, slopestyle, and halfpipe events before we bring the pros off the bench and into the podcast to hear their thoughts, stories, feedback, and more importantly, their predictions for the upcoming season. But I am joined from the other side of the world by no other than Mr. Adam Begg. Beggsy, do you want to give us a little introduction? Who are you, what you do, and why you here at the highest level of contest snowboarding?
Hey Gaz, yeah. So I'm Beggsy. I'm probably the head judge on the tour at the moment, and leading into the Olympics. History is I've been judging for probably in the last 25 years. I've been and involved in the snow industry for 30 plus years. I sort of live, eat, breathe snowboarding, and have risen up through the ranks, and now sit pretty firmly on the tour.
I like you undersell that so much. Probably the head judge on the tour at the moment. The guy who is going to be head judge at the Olympics in, 6-7 months' time kind of thing?
Yeah,
Feeling the pressure?
looking forward to it. It's been a good season. Just come fresh off a season of head judging and finishing up with World Championships. So that was a good one, and good to test the waters before next year, I think. So we had a good crew and really good events. Yeah, nice little bookend for the season. That.
But yeah, give us this season's rating on a scale of 1 to 10 in general. How are you feeling at the end of it? Because now we're into those summer months for those in the Northern Hemisphere. You're just building back up into another winter season. But feeling good at the end of that season then?
Oh yeah, I'm at a 9 or a 10. It was a really good
9
season.
Or a 10?
Optimistic, always optimistic for the next season. And I guess the travel wears you down, but as far as the snowboarding and the competition and where we're all headed, I'm very positive that we're on the right track and things are going really well.
Yeah, I think we're in peak mode at the moment. The athletes are all tuned in. Some of the stuff we saw this season on tour was insane. I think as a judge crew, we're very dialed in. So I think we're in a pretty good spot heading into this highly important season. Yeah. And I guess just to introduce myself as well before we go into the deep dive of the season, I'm Gaz, snowboard judge coordinator, so I get the pleasure of managing this wonderful crew of judges that go around the world on the FIS World Cup Tour. I do various bits of commentary, hence the wonderful commentary headset. But my background is always dome dry slopes, so these big mountain things is a bit of a new side of me. But yeah, hyped to be here for the very first podcast episode. This is something we've been chatting about for quite some time now, just to give a little bit of insight into more the behind the scenes and kind of have our platform for a voice any of the decisions that go on in that contest world. We know it's a very subjective part of the sport. The judging is probably the most hated aspect of snowboarding, should we say? So it's quite nice that we get a chance to at least explain why some of those judging decisions have been made and kind of help educate people along the way, right?
Yeah.
So sweet. So let's leave the intros there, and we'll kick in straight into this 2024-25 season. And we'll start off with the big air. All right, so big air this season we had, I want to say 4 or 5 World Cups. It started way back in Kurt in Switzerland, which always kind of comes off as a little bit of a kind of a rogue one because it's mid-October. It's during all the kind of the pre-season glacier training camps, and then there's just this gigantic event in Switzerland on a scaffolding jump. And we go into China, and then we move into what do we do? The double Austria header over the New Year, Klagenfurt, Kreuzberg. Then went to Aspen and finished with World Champs. So quite an intense big air season. Beggsy, do you want to hit us with some highlights from your time or from the season of Big Air?
I guess probably the big one sits outside the tour. It's Hiroto cracking the 23. That's a glaring one that, was just amazing to see, but that feeds back into it's the progression we saw. Every event we just started to see more and more. As far as actual event highlights, I think Aspen was probably one of the ones that really sat on my radar as being one of the best ones. Looking at Judd starting to do a bunch of butters and hard way type stuff. Eli's sort of triple moose pullback. Aspen really. Who else? Oivans with the front 18. Like there's just a lot of really good landed tricks on that same X Games jump the week after X Games. So I think that was probably the real pivotal moment of the season that sort of said we're on the Olympic run in, and stuff's getting heavy now. So
Shit's about to get real.
yeah.
Yeah, I think this entire big air season has been like awesome for snowboarding because we've had that dual avenue of progression between like we've had Hiroto's 20s, we've had Mattioli's 21s in competition, like high rotation spins are getting there, they're getting rewarded, but we've had that secondary kind of push the opposite way in terms of low rotation but still high difficulty on those weird kind of axis sort of things. So we've started to see the switch rodeos come in. We're seeing the pullbacks, the completely, I want to say new axis. If you look at the likes of Ollie Martin's tricks, some of those axes he does. You mentioned Oyvind's front triple 18 on, yeah, that 18 took us a few attempts to actually get our heads around how that axis actually kind of set in store. So I think that big air season this year was just different, progressive, what we want to see.
Yeah, I mean, it started probably when we started having writers' meetings of that shift to, you know, you don't have to do another 180. We want to see bringbacks, pullbacks, different axis, different variety. And that was back in Edmonton. I think Nick Weiss won on a cab triple, switch. It was a switchback triple 12. And 1260 started beating 18. So I think that was where we pivoted. But then from there, this season really just kind of showed that direction and the split direction in the sport's here to stay. And when we start to talk accesses, it's probably a good segue into the girls because I think the women, it was Anna's found that constant cork axis where she can just. A cab triple at Kreisberg was just perfect. There's just, we're seeing 12s from the girls and 14s in every comp. Like, the standard's just gone through the roof this season. So that's been amazing to watch.
Yeah, like the girls doing a 10 doesn't even guarantee you a spot in finals anymore. Like it's good, and you basically need a 12 in qualies to get anywhere near a decent spot in finals.
Yeah. And we're seeing that at every event, no matter what the conditions. So that's super exciting too, I think.
Yeah, and like you made a great point with Anna, like the change in that cork, because I guess the past 3 seasons before this one, like she's been doing that cab double nine as very much the full backflip rotation, then the late 90 on the way back. But now she's actually setting that as the full double cork nine rather than double underflip nine, and that axis is so much more aesthetic, and she's got it way more on lock than she used to. The whole control
Yeah,
is there. It's what you
it's
need to see.
beautiful. It just holds and goes. So yeah, that's awesome. I love it. And you mentioned Ollie James Martin before too. His one, it's sort of that Ming axis as well. It's just once they find that, you can see, like you can poke out an indie and speed it up, or then like slow it down slightly, but you're still, yeah, just getting rotations cleanly and well executed, which is good from our point of view too.
Yeah, that's one of our criteria. So that's always it's helpful when they tick that box of the get go.
Yeah,
But that's I always find that really cool because like when you start judging, they always teach you like backside spins with an indie is harder because it's not the grab that goes with the rotation. It's kind of that blocking shoulder. But these guys like Su Yiming, Ollie Martin, Hiroto have managed to get these backside spins with indie, with that super high indie, poke the tail down, and just set yourself into that little rip, and they can go for 21.
yeah. It's similar to what Ian does on the front axis when he does the tail to set up with a mute or wettle to get into that axis, but they can spin as fast or as long as they want and hold the grab. And like you say, they fill all our criteria and make it look good at the same time. So it's exciting.
And let's go back to like a point you just kind of made, riders meetings. Like this, I think has been our kind of like big development between the whole community recently. And this is probably something that's not wider known outside of the riders, coaches, judges, but we as judges are getting the riders feedback in way more. Like we are having these conversations every single World Cup to make sure that we're on the right page. What do you reckon's kind of been the big takeaways from those riders' meetings that we started, I want to say December 23 in Edmonton, and we've kind of gone consistently all the way through the next two seasons. But like, what's been the big air focus from like conversationally from those meetings?
I think the biggest takeaway before we go to big air focus is probably that they have value. You know, I thought maybe we'd do a couple. Are we on the right page? Do we all agree with what we're doing and where we're going? And then that may be it. But you know, 2.5, 3 years later, we've shown that you know every comp people are asking for them, and we want to do them. So there's obviously value there that we're as a community taking the sport in the direction that it should. Like you know, everyone has an impact in that direction. It's not the judges saying this is what we want you to show us. It's us saying to them, you know, what would you like to do? Where would you like to see the sport go? And the riders, you know, being a rider driven sport for that progression. So I think that's my biggest takeaway from the meetings. You know, there's been a few good moments on that. That's where we've sort of discussed, you know, bring backs, pullbacks, where those different things sit as a in relation to the high value spins. And then that's been really good to hear athletes' voices, hear people that may not usually have have input into the discussion. You know, you've got those bigger teams where there's one coach with 6 people and you never hear from the athletes. So having Tiger show up with Google Translate and really tell us what he thought in Aspen was probably it's up there with my highlights of the season, just to hear someone who is on that cutting edge of progression with English as a second language really just explain where they want to see the sport go and how they see big air snowboarding playing out in the next few years.
Yeah, because it's all well and good us putting our numbers on the page, but it's kind of like a customer driven sport. It's the riders that we want to make sure that we're on the right wavelength for. And it used to be so easy when it was just 7, 9, 10, 12. Breaking down that difficulty was super easy. But now it's going 21s against triple 12s. Trying to find that balance for us as judges is insane. But I think, yeah, as you say, Tiger actually just speaking up in his second language is awesome. And I love that we've got that community level now that people are happy to speak up. Like we're all the same little community rather than being two different sides of it.
No, it's been really good, and I think it's as hard as it is for us sometimes. It gives us that little bit more accountability. You know, has something happened at a previous event, we all get in the room and talk about it and keep moving forward. So, you know, I think that's been nothing but good for everyone.
Yeah, it's really hard to hide away now. Like we get
Yeah,
put in the spotlight even more. But I get that's good, and it's great that the riders can come up and chat to the judges and say kind of their 2 cents. They know they've got that opportunity every single contest. That yeah, they've all got a voice that can change how the sport's going to progress as long as they speak up about it. But yeah. But all right, hit us. What was your favorite big air of the season? I know you kind of hinted at Aspen because Aspen was pretty all time. The whole week was pretty awesome, to be fair.
yeah, yeah. I stand by Aspen on that one. I think, like you say, the whole week was pretty awesome. We came off that jump was perfect. You know, it was a Charles Beckinsale jump. The riders like that. The weather was good. It was sunny. It was just everything kind of aligned that morning. That you know everything was good, and that showed in the standard of riding for sure.
Yeah, you can never go wrong with the Charles jump. That's always
No,
destined to bring something decent out of the woodwork.
yeah, and time on it too. It was a good schedule. I feel like we had, you know, those good, like some guys had the week before, but you know, the training was pretty successful too. We had that beautiful training day where we were all just sitting in the sun, and that
Shorts
was
day.
where it really kind of unlocked.
How was the day to get the shorts out? In was it late January, early Feb? But yeah.
Yeah,
Like Aspen was good. I've got too much PTSD with US Customs blocking my visa to kind of put
of
Aspen up as
course.
my top level. So I had too much stress sitting at Heathrow hotel rooms. For me, Beijing was all time. Like the Beijing big air jumps prime still brings back a bit of PTSD from 2022. Um, but we'll talk about that later on in the series, I'm sure. But for me, that was like that Beijing big air jump is just prime time conditions. It's just perfectly built, great judging spot. The riders get decent amounts of training time over the 2-3 days beforehand, and that was where we saw the first 21 in contest, which was cool. We saw a lot of
Yeah,
those to buy tricks start to come into contest mode, which is awesome.
yeah. I guess that's a big one. You said this. like you see this Dubai tricks, like, for that spring, we're just constantly refreshing our feed from SAS and Dubai. And like you see the stomping grounds when they're all just learning those tricks. And, Core's a bit small, but Beijing's always the one where we start to see what's possible this year on the jumps. And it's sort of a hybrid scaffold snow jump. But you're like, if you're seeing it at Beijing, once we get, a big on snow jump, we're really going to see some stuff. So that's always good. Beijing setting the tone for the season.
Yeah, because that's usually what 2 weeks after Dubai closes. Like Dubai closes like 20th of November. We end up going to Beijing start of December. So everyone's in full flow, and I am well aware when Dubai's happening because my DMs open up massively because you keep sending reels through. Like there's yeah, it's like 7 or 8 reels a day of like, oh, another MBD from Dubai.
Yeah. I mean, my defense is not just me. We have that, for what I guess for people that don't know, we have a chat going of all the current World Cup judges, and we share that stuff just to try and stay on top of it and see what's current and, discuss it outside the pressure of being in the box. It's always good to wake up in the morning, same as you, because we're all on different time zones across the world, and somebody might see it first, and it's like everything in the one place for you. Just get up and see the latest good snowboarding. So I love that time of year on my
Yeah,
phone.
and because you're Australian, you're on the fastest time zone. So like by the time things get posted in the night, most of us in Europe are asleep. And if I don't wake up to like 6 DMs or 6 new reels from you to be like, oh, actually, yeah, shit went down yesterday in Dubai. It's
Yeah.
cool. But like, yeah, we are following it pretty good, and I really like it. I don't think like the past few years when we've seen this Dubai stuff, I don't really feel like it's gone into contest mode quite as well. Like there's always been like a few bits you get hyped out of Dubai, and then it does like the next contest doesn't quite meet that standard. Whereas this year, I think that was the first time we saw those insane Dubai tricks, and suddenly first contest or first real contest of the season in terms of big air, like those tricks started to get thrown. And for me, that was just that switching point of being like, shit, we're on, like we're going. This is Olympic qualification period.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're in.
Yeah, that was very evident this year. Like, I guess the Dubai jump's a lot bigger than the Stomping Grounds one. The Stomping Grounds is perfect, and then I think the size of that Dubai, it really steps it up. And then Beijing, it's hard to see everything we saw there, but you really hit it there. Like it's like this is an Olympic qualification period. We're gonna see some shit this year, and we certainly did. And I think we've already had a few people qualify now, but yeah, it definitely flips the switch 18 months out from Milano.
Yeah, because the qualification period started in New Zealand, which we were both at. Sketchy weather is always in New Zealand, but that never really felt like it should have been. It was the start of the period. It should have been all guns blazing. Now we're in, but that did seem to delay it a little bit. And I think Stomping Grounds is sick because it's kind of that like that little trailer teaser highlights of what's to expect. Because when you start to see the mechanics of those NBD tricks start to get laid down, the foundations get built, and then they get to Dubai with a slightly bigger jump, and yeah, things really ramp up.
Yeah, so I think New Zealand. Yeah, like you said, we're plagued by weather. It would have just been really nice to have a big air on that schedule too, to have that old drawn out period that we usually have. So we had that extra weather day and be able to have a big air because that Cadrona one, it's incredible that jump when it's on. So it would have been nice to see that too. I think we saw the first quad ever done there. We've seen a bunch of MBDs on that jump over the years. So I think that was probably one of the things that was lacking from that one.
Yeah, that's a shit, and I don't know why because we did snowboard slope and free ski pipe, but like big air just never seemed to get on the
Yeah.
schedule, which is kind of that's always been an issue with Fizz in recent years is just that schedule and weather issues and just trying to like keep it as slim as possible, and we just lose that window, which I think is something that should be worked on moving forwards.
Yeah, and whether that's the weather day or I guess there's a number of things to talk about on the table for that, but that's probably a whole nother episode.
Yeah, yeah, I'm sure we can get some voices in for that. But yeah, like I think for places like Cadrona, Mammoth, Larks, when you know the weather's going to be a little bit questionable, having a couple spare days just to, you know, loosen the schedule up's quite nice because otherwise we'll get into slopestyle surely, but yeah, otherwise we end up just cutting programs, cutting formats, and it never comes out of that kind of high quality finals that you really want to see. It's just whoever can put it down at the right time. But speaking of slopestyle, should we go on to slopestyle? I'm hyped by slopestyle this season. I know looking at your little points, you can show your generational age with all the half pipe excitement, but we can kick off with slopestyle first.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, slopestyle. What was your seasonal highlight?
Probably Larks. Larks is always one of those
You've got to
slope
say
styles
Lars,
that,
haven't you? Yeah.
yeah, all the riders make sure they're there. All of us want to be there. The mountain's awesome. The course is awesome. And it almost leads into that dream tour format that we'd love to see one day. Have a transition course, have a jumps course, have a rails course, and have a specific course. Larks kind of throws back to those old US Open days, but it always is a little bit more transitional based. It's not your standard rail, rail, jump, jump, jump. So, I like that. It's always a bit of a curveball judging once they throw an extra feature in there, section by section having 7 features. I think we kind of worked it out this year, but that I guess plays into my highlights and lowlights all in the one event. It was good to see Cam stepping up and getting the win on that one and kind of making a name for himself. There's been a bunch of young Canadians in the wings for a long time now. So to see them like hit it at Larks was really good. Noah, there was some new faces in there. Dane Menzies came on the scene real hard this year. And then I guess the low light from that one is seeing Liam, who's just been on fire all year, just off the podium. I would have loved to see him on the podium on that one. I think he deserves to be there.
All right. So, Beggsy, you mentioned there talking about how Larks is the dream course, which I think Larks probably had the best slopestyle course this season with, like, it didn't really have a money booter, which was sick. It had very much lower rotational elements, which really built into like a nice slopestyle course. But you mentioned the trickiness of 7 sections when it comes to section by section slopestyle judging, and this is going to be us diversified into a very nerdy, geeky part of it, but I think it's kind of cool for people to understand a little bit of what goes on and how that kind of total score of 86.63 for Cam Spalder really got built down. Because normally the way section by section is built was it was designed for a 6 section course, basically 10 points per section, and then the remaining 40 goes from that composition factor, looking at top to bottom all the way through the course, looking at your variety, the whole flow throughout the run. So you've raised this point a few times this season when we've looked at those courses, but like having 7 sections starts to play into the math a lot more of how that final score comes about. But talk us through your, let's say, your annoyance with a 7 section slopestyle course when it comes to that judging format.
Well, yeah, I don't know if it's an annoyance as such. There's always some quirks with something like that. So I think there was a lot of great minds spent a lot of time playing with percentages. Even, the two of us have gone back and run results through spreadsheets and tried to see what would happen if we changed that percentage of jumps versus composition and overall impression. But I think that was all based around it's very clean when it's out of 100 and you've got 60 for the 6 sections, 10 for each, and 40 for the rest. So it's a very clean break. Once you add an extra section, instead of everything being out of 10, the math starts to change and it just gets a little bit compressed. That one, we felt like the results that we want, like, we had people on sections. It felt like we were against the maths in that one. Saying that, we kind of worked out how to fix that a little bit in Corvatch at World Championships. And I feel like a similar 7 section course in Switzerland, we actually managed to get everyone was happy with how it worked out with the maths. So I think as judges, we've progressed and learned a bit this season, but the actual format of that getting compressed definitely makes a difference.
Because I think that's something that a lot of people don't understand, even to the point of like Ed Lee doing the commentary on Larks. Like he's, I would say, one of the best sports commentators we've got. But even he couldn't get his head around this whole fact that the sections were actually they're only out of 9 instead of out of 10. So everyone's then looking at these scores coming through because that's the beauty of section by section is you get to see the score per feature at the end of the run and seeing something like a switchback 12 on section 5 coming through like an 8.37. And you're thinking, actually, on that section, why are the judges leaving a point and a half on the field to get to 10 when in reality that 8.37 was near enough a 90 out of 100, so it should have been up in the 9 club, but it's just the whole visuals. No one's used to scoring things in any sport out of 9. It's always 10 or 100. So I think
Yes.
whilst we as judges have got the maths dialed down and we've got a lot more on top of it and we understand the whole kind of having to really exaggerate executional flaws or success points, it just doesn't come across that way to the standard viewer.
Yeah, or even when you say nines club there, like you say, we're so used to something being out of 10. So, surfing, skateboarding, there is that exceptional, it's going to be in the nines. But for this format, the second you add that seventh feature, that nines club really has to be in the high nines, not just into the nines. So, we've always been, traditionally that conservative. It goes into the 90s, it's great. Let's go into the 90s. But if shit really hits the fan and we're going to see a whole run of hammers, we need that room up the top. Whereas it's just with section by section, really, going into those high nines. And that flows back into why we see low scores in section by section. It's very rare to, every other comp, we have 1, 2, 3 scores in the 90s. Usually the podiums are up there in those exceptional runs. Section by section, or normal section by section. You can have a winning run in the 70s or in the 80s. I think Frank's run in Aspen was fairly low score. Mia for Larks was, in the mid 80s. Cams was I think in the 80s for Larks. And then we've got I think the only one in the season was Liam winning at Worlds that went into the 90s. It's probably the first score that I can remember that's ever gone into the 90s for section by section. So, and I think that lays back to the cracking the code.
Yeah, Frank was in 79.3 in Aspen, win and run.
Yeah.
Cam was in 86 in Larks, and hitting the 90s in a section by section just because of the maths around it and how we have to leave stuff as judges just in case we see that NBD that we've never even seen in a big air. Like, it is mathematically really difficult to get the score that in OI you'd be so comfortable just putting the score at 96 because you've still got, you've got 4 full numbers above it. You've got 4 or 3 values within that number. You've still got 12 to 15 places above that 96 just in case you need it. Yeah, section by section. You do get a little bit penned down, which is a shame because a lot of people focus on that final score.
Yeah, and that's that old thing of people wanting to see, a 90 score at Corvarch versus a 79 at Aspen. It's like, what was the difference between the two runs? It's like they were both by far the winning runs on the day and both exceptional, but we're just using that score to get to a rank, which we still have to educate people on, no matter, how long they've been commentating or how long they've been competing. I feel like we still have that conversation every year too.
And people have to be really quick on maths to figure out what an 8.3 is out of 9 as a percentage out of 10.
So moving forward, we might have cracked that one. I think if there is a 7-section course from now on, we're just going to, whatever's published will be in that 1 out of 10. So it is clear and kind of reduces our explaining, hopefully.
Yeah. Hopefully it says 8.3 is 92 out of 100 or something like that on the graphics. So you can see straight away that, how it all works out. But the other option we do have is we stick every section out of 10 to make it nice and easy. We do 70 points for the total score, and then we do 30 points for composition. But then suddenly that variety factor gets dropped massively because you've lost 25% of the composition score.
Yeah, those Renes and the riders with flow of the world won't be liking that. What was your highlight for the season for slopestyle?
Well, funny you should mention Aspen because Frank Jobin's run for me was top tier, and just from a snowboarding perspective, I thought was insane. Like, the fact that we had a win and run that had hardaway switch front 9, back 12 Stalmaski, and switchback double rodeo 12 as the kind of the kicker line part of the tricks. If we ignore the rails completely, I think we've got so used to recently, if you remember Yuki Kodono doing the first back-to-back 16s in the US Open, I want to say 2016, 2017. Since then, we've started to have the jump runs being 12, 14, 16, 12, 16, 16, 14, 16, 18. We've had such high rotational values in slopestyle to then suddenly have an amazing run come through that won a World Cup in a super high standard of riding. It wasn't like no one showed up and everyone fell and it was an easy run. It was still the technically most difficult run against the likes of Red, Cam, Liam, but it was switch 9, back 12, switch rodeo 12, which for me as a snowboarder, love to see. I thought they were each trick was unique. It was switch front 9 off the toes, which is pretty unique rotation. It's not something we've seen a lot of in the past few years. The back 12 Stalmaski, one of my favorite grabs in a weird way because it sounds cool. It's not the most stylish. And I remember we had the conversation on the morning of kind of favorite grabs, and I was like, Stalmaski is really cool. And then suddenly we then see that same Stalmaski in a back 12.
Yep.
And then the switchback double roadie 12, you can never really, the way Frank does it was sick. So as a snowboarder, love to see the run. As a judge, I was on the composition for that one, so I had the joy of actually seeing the entire run. Love the variety all the way through, including the rails. Love the variety on the jumps. The whole flow was sick. It was perfectly put together. But it's one of those really interesting things with like section by section judging is like you put your score in, but because of this whole maths formula that we've talked about, you've actually got no idea of the end result. So I remember giving it, I think it was my highest composition score of the day, put it in, enter on the keypad, pretty happy with where it's at composition wise. Katie and Istok agreed on it as well. And then hearing you as the head judge kind of go, oh, there we go, that's our first place. It's just like, oh, fuck yeah, that actually worked. Everything else in the sections got recognized enough that the mathematical formula kind of came together to get the right run. So that was for me was a big standout moment, I think, for snowboarding and also for us as judges to show that we're not just purely focusing on the rotational number. We are taking into account all the other mechanics, the aspects of the trick, rather than just looking for the 14, 18, 21 combo in the slopestyle course.
Yeah, and that rails count on that one too, because his rails were, he basically did a street run, and he was, again, fresh off X Games for that one. So, it was good to see that level of rail riding in a slopestyle run, and that really balanced his score and helped keep those lower rotation jumps on the podium.
Yeah, and I think that's the beauty of the whole section by section system. Like in the past, if you've done OI, it's so easy to get swayed by those banger tricks on the jumps and just let like a cab 2-2, front 2-2 just wash through the rail sections. Whereas like section by section holds each section fully accountable. Like you've got to have 6 very dialed tricks to get in with a shot at the podium. So yeah, that was a good day. I was pretty happy with. That was a nice day in the office.
Yeah, that definitely has to be out there with the highlights. That whole week, it was just a good one.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Like we had, yeah, good crew, good comp, good weather, poor snow for our actual riding. Like there was no
Yeah.
hint of any kind of sneaky off-piste turns, but we got some good calves in the morning.
Yeah, good ground and good result, I guess, is the main one for that. You don't go home on the plane worried about, you know, how social media is going to blow up or just kicking yourself that it could have been better.
Yeah, not anxiously refreshing the slope humor page to see what's been said.
I guess the final one for slope, from my point of view, before we kick off to pipe, would just be, like we've spoken a lot about Americans, Canadians coming up, but really just that total Japanese domination's been there for, almost a couple of years now. And whilst we haven't mentioned it that much, it's almost like the elephant in the room. You don't mention it because, the girls were doing clean sweeps. The boys, there's 4 or 5 of those guys on any given day at top of the podium. So, yeah, that's probably the only other thing I'd like to throw in there is just, that total
Yeah,
domination.
yeah, and like Su Yiming, like a snowboarder, and he's starting to develop that as well. Like I think he came across a bit spin to winny at first, like locked in the back 19, the back 18 is really easy, but is now like has seen this progression of the rodeos getting rewarded, the different axis, and came out in world champs in St. Moritz with a pretty unique like Hardway switch frontside double 14 or something, or was it double 10? But it was a very unique axis that was just kind of highlighted that he'd paid attention and he was like, actually, I've got the
Yeah.
big standard rotational tricks, but I've got to work something else in to like actually have that full package.
It's exciting, the future of all those riders, I think, just how it's going and how they're progressing.
Yeah, and I think like we're going into that Olympic season now, and I honestly don't think you could predict who's in the finals at this point in time. Like it feels wide open. I feel like there's a good 15 to 20 athletes on the men's side, probably a good 10 to 15 on the women's side that have every right to be in that final. They've got all the tricks. They've been showcasing it. It's got super competitive and no one's like clear plain and sailing. Like it's
Yeah.
I think we're in
Well,
for
there's still
an exciting there's still a lot to play for. Was that what you were
yeah,
going to say?
and there's still a bunch of top dogs that haven't even qualified, both men's and women. So
Yeah.
it's like there's people that you're talking about where we can't wait to see in the final that may not even be on the team yet in the US or Canada or something like that. So that's pretty exciting too.
Yeah, and that's the tricky thing with like the way the Olympics is with the quota spots is like I think Canada's probably got 5 to 6 athletes in the top 20 ranking worldwide, but because of the Olympic quota spots of each nation only getting 4 places, the fight for an Olympic spot is fierce. But if you're in those quite heavily stacked nations like the US, like Canada, then the fight for a nation spot is even more intense. And I think we've had Cam Spalding, Liam Briley, Red Gerard, have had their places confirmed for Canada, US. I don't know if any others have kind of come to light, but it's like, oh shit, actually, if Cam and Liam have got 2 spots secured for Canada, that means there's only 2 spots left. You got Mark, you got Eli, you got Frank, you got Truth. There's like
Nick.
very high caliber. Nick, yeah. I always forget Nick because I think he's been injured a bit and hasn't ridden as much the past season or so.
Yeah, there's a few like that. I think there's Luke Winkleman, Nick, Valentino. There's a bunch that, get injured and you lose them for, a year with a knee, and then suddenly it's like, oh, that's right. They were podium in every final before they hurt themselves. So yeah, it'll be interesting this year.
But all right, so that's slopestyle kind of wrapped up for now. We're going to go into more detail over the next couple episodes when we get to our slopestyle specific one. But let's get into pipe. I think pipe was one of the more exciting disciplines this season, partly with that introduction of snow league. And
Yeah.
it's kind of interesting because I think for a long time people have said pipes a dying sport because it's just there's only what 9 or 10 full super pipes left around the world, and we're getting very limited as to where we go. It's got very routine based, but Snow League kind of came in, Sean White backed, full production value, and I think it's really blown open the world of Snow League. And like my personal pipe highlight, which is going to sound quite weird because it's right at the end of the season, but was World Champs Finals. Not necessarily because it was perfect weather, bluebird, everyone nailing tricks. Almost because it was the opposite. It was absolutely shit weather to the point that I think we were sat at the judges' stand wondering if they were going to run, if they were going to call and push back. We'd already started looking at like flight details because we were supposed to be flying out the next day. And it was just like, this isn't going to go. This looks shoddy at the top of the hill. We
Yeah.
can see the banners going all over the place. But given the weather, the riders threw down. Like 100%. You look at the likes of like Chloe Kim's run in World Champs Final. Her first run was sick. The fact that she went into the last run guaranteed world champion because she was last to drop and then still tried to up the ante given how crap the weather was, which is like pipe is back and pipe is firing.
Yeah. Pipe's well and truly back if you look at the schedule. Like you said, with the introduction to Snow League, we've got, a full schedule there with three. And then looking at this season schedule, I think there's another 5 or 6 pipes. So those Snow League riders and judges are going to be doing 8 pipe comps this season. So looking at that with only 2 slope styles this year, it's pipes seems to be where people's attention is.
Yeah, and like to be fair, it was the first one in the Olympics. It was kind of like that traditional snowboarding discipline. It's where a lot of the sport came from. But the fact that we're doing, we've got Snow League at Secret Garden, we got Secret Garden World Cup, we got Copper World Cup, Larks, Aspen, Calgary, and that's in December 1st to 20th of January. I think it's quite intense. So I think the Olympics will be the sixth. If I've done my maths right, the sixth halfpipe event of the season. So
Yeah.
in theory, everyone's gonna be dialed in.
Yeah, totally. It's going to be a good one. And yeah, that was a good event, I think. Korvach, looking at it, like you say, I'd already extended our accommodation. We had spare flights on the boil. Like we weren't
You'd already
expecting to
start looking
run.
at day two in the spa.
Yeah, conditions were horrendous, and then to see them all come up there and yeah, Scotty and Chloe put their runs down was pretty incredible. Like it's tough, and it just goes to show how good those guys are because visibility wasn't great, wind was there, snow was on and off. So yeah, it's pretty amazing to see such a high caliber final, and yeah, see that.
And the whole impact of Snow League, because obviously the format involves like dropping in on different sides of the wall, adding a bit more variety into the runs. You can't kind of repeat the runs as you could do in a World Cup where you can have the same run all the way through qualies, semis, finals, etc. I feel like when we got to World Champs, which was 2 weeks after the Snow League event, I believe, maybe 3 weeks, like we started to see a lot more variety starting to get thrown into those World Champs runs rather than it just being like toe side, heel side, toe side, toe side, toe side. But there was actually different runs starting to be built together, which really showcases that variety in pipe, which I think is what is like, this could be the next step. We've seen the super high rotations, we've seen the triples, we've yet to see kind of the full back-to-back triple, which I'm sure is just on the horizon for a couple of the Japanese flying squad
Yeah,
season
we'll
pre-Olympics.
be seeing it this season. I think that I guess that's my highlight when we're talking that and these new tricks and probably where Snow League's pushed it. Like one of my biggest highlights was just watching some of Russo's runs just coming onto the scene. How those runs make you feel. his switchback double McTwist 10 is just incredible. He does some cool alley oops. Like it's exciting. It's not just like you say combos and just back to back high spins. So that's pretty good, I think.
It's nice and refreshing, I think. Like for a lot of people that have grown up like watching pipe and just been like, all right, cool. They've added it's another toe side spin. They've got a front double 10 and a front flat 10 in the run. Now we're starting to see five completely different tricks, which is insane.
Yeah, I was going to the Ruka train, going, you've got someone like him in copper going 10, 12, 14, 14, 12, and just impeccable combos. And you're just like, how good is this? Can this guy get any better? And then down comes Russo, and you're like, oh, wow, like where do I go with this? Like they're, yeah, so different ends of the spectrum, but yet we have to compare them.
It's kind of going on that, like what I was kind of saying about Big Air way back at the start was like we've got the spin to win side of things, and then we've got the low rotation funky axis. Like both very relevant in the sport. Whichever way you want to push it will reward them equally based on kind of the technical difficulty. And it's cool that pipes get in that same kind of avenue as well of people pushing alley oops. Like we've seen, was it switch frontside alley oop or something popped up on Instagram the past weeks or so, which was just again the next evolution of pipe. It's just people are now finding the different directions that are doable.
Yeah, those Japanese clips coming out of Spring in Mammoth are definitely, we've seen all different, both male and female riders trying the alley oops and then just playing with things. I think, was it Copper? Yuto started doing his switchback double 12 instead of just going like normal switchback double 12. The axis he gets on, he almost like 90 rolls down the pipe on his second run, his mid spin, he kind of hooks into it. So I think they're even playing with, just their normal rotations now. That they're just at that level. It's pretty sick to see.
Yeah, the progression is really cool. Like Copper was a pretty good contest. It's a nice start to the season after Secret Garden.
It's hard to pick a favorite for pipe.
Was Copper your favorite annual low point at the same time?
I think so. I think, yeah, probably the favorite because like Beijing was cool and then Copper came in. Yuto did that sick switchback double 12. And then, yeah, Russo was just, I was blown away by his stuff. But then, yeah, the whole Chloe situation, that has to be a low point. That's, you know, I guess that's part of our job is to make those shitty decisions. And, I guess for those that don't remember, did the winning, probably what would have been the winning run
I
of
was
the
going to
day.
say, go through the full detail. Not to sound like this is a therapy session, just to help you get over the anxiety. But yeah, talk us through that. What happened? What really went down in Copper? Because we've seen the stuff on social, we've seen Chloe's opinion, but it was effectively your call, wasn't it?
Yeah, it came down to me.
Not
So what happened
yeah, not to
is
throw you under the bus.
yeah, she did perfect run. Or a nice run. It was good execution, amazing tricks. What would have been the winning run of the day, I think. And then as she landed her final trick, she'd come across the bottom of the flat bottom and just skipped out on her heels and crashed going up the the next wall. And it was super contentious as to whether she'd finished his run. There's people that claim she fell over claiming, which I disagree with. She basically just was too heavy on her heels and chatted out in the flat bottom. But, it's one of those damned if you do, damned if you don't decisions. Should there have been a finish line in the bottom there, she probably would have crashed halfway across it and we still would have had to make a tough decision. But yeah, it came back to the judge's booth to say, are we going to call it a land and a run and put her in first? Or are we going to say she fell and go back up there and give it to us clean and we'll put you in first outright? So was pretty split decision in the booth and we didn't have a lot of time, and I've made the call that it should have been a fall, which watching back, I actually watched it back probably only 2 weeks ago. It popped up on my feed and I was like, I still kind of stick by that decision. It's
Just
not
as a
one of those
nice
ones.
reminder.
Well, there's those decisions that are tight and you go to bed flip-flopping going, I could have gone the other way or that was so close. I didn't know with that one. I kind of made the decision at the time and okay, I'm calling it a fall because, if she'd just gone out and crashed down in the finish corral, could have had it. If she'd gone up onto the deck and ridden up there and stand like Scotty does when he runs out of that bottom hit, or cab three'd out of the pipe, or just done a slash, done anything to say that you were in control there, I would have given it to her. But, we often have that terminology going. If there was another hit there, how would you have gone? And in that scenario, she would have fallen over before she'd even got into that next hit. So I kind of made the call based off that going, you weren't in control enough to even do a splash and ride out, or even just ride another 5 meters. And so I've called it a fall. And then watching it again, I think, yeah, I'd call it a fall tomorrow if I had to do the same thing, as awkward and as uncomfortable as that one was. And like I said, if we put a finish line back and have a finish line there, I don't think that would have made it any easier in this instance. I think I still would have been up against it with a shit decision.
I feel like the finish line would have made it even more awkward because you'd have had to go through like frame by frame replay and be like, did she get both feet across that finish line before she tipped, or was it front foot over? Like, where's the line around that finish line? And you made the great point of like control. That's how we've looked at it with all the city big airs when it's like steep landing, short run out zone, and people crash in the finish because they're just slamming on the brakes. We've always looked at it as if you've got that element of control that like if the slope just goes on for another 100 meters, you'd be cruising, or are you falling over because you've over rotated or under rotated the trick? And for Chloe, from me as a nice, easy commentator on that day, which is the easier job in the world, like she was heavy on the heels coming on that landing. Like that wasn't a clean landing for the trick. Like if she'd managed to stay standing, it was a super heavy, like uphill carve at the best. Like she definitely wouldn't have got another hit out of it. You could have argued that, yeah, it wasn't a clean landing, but she stayed on her feet, but you wouldn't have had it like high 90s because of that one mistake. But you have to look at the control element. The control wasn't there. So unfortunately, like it's the shitty part of the job when you suddenly have to be like, yeah, it was a sick run, but it wasn't fully completed.
Yeah, and I guess that you spoke PTSD earlier in the in the episode, but we've had some tough calls over the years, and we've
Are we
been
going to
lit
go
up
into
on
it?
social media. No, not this time, but I just figure we've been lit up in past decisions, and I look at that when we had 20 seconds to make that call. It's like you said, it was control, and we had there been a finish line. There's no real clear rules around that either, but I also look at that and go, we damned if we do, damned if we don't, but. Yeah, should she have just ridden and just beelined it out to the lift and fallen off the
Mm,
camera, we wouldn't have an issue
yeah.
because we only judge what we see. We wouldn't have seen it. Yeah,
If you're going to
but
fall,
yeah,
do
I
it off
might.
camera.
Yeah, back to the PTSD thing. I think the probably one of the catalysts for me making that decision was I've got to justify this to not only the athletes there, but the snowboard community and the wider world. And my justification was that we didn't see it as in control, and I would rather defend that where we've got she fell right in front of her eyes, as opposed to that being the winning run and appearing all over social media with a photo of her on her bottom in the middle of the pipe going, check out the winning run from Copper. That's another way of looking at it, I guess.
Yeah, because if you'd put it as a full run, you'd have had the Japanese team coming in to be like, hey, look, here's the screen grab. Why is our girl not in first when the winner fell on the run? Like, it's the same as when Sean in Pyeongchang got the winning run in pipe finals, and everyone was just like, he boot grabbed the whole way through. Like, it was, and you're like, no, like they zoomed in, the gloves are over the board, but it is that perspective kind of things. And it sucked to happen to Chloe. Like, would have loved to have seen that run fully cleanly landed because those are the runs you want to have landed to give the easy scores to easy winner, no contention, and then you just sat there with the button going, actually, that was a fall. Switch the phone to airplane mode so no one texts you.
Well, that brings it back full circle to what you said of, Kovac being comp of the season for you, and it comes full circle, and Chloe gets the win and puts down the run we wanted to see in Copper, and gets what she deserves. So I think that was, yeah, it was really good.
It's been sick to see the women's progression in pipe all the way through, not just from like Chloe's pushed the boundaries massively this season with some of the tricks, but we've seen like some Sarah Shimizu coming on the scene a bit more, like Maddie's starting to put two doubles in the run, like Guillaume also having an insane bag of tricks in terms of how she puts her run together. Like we're seeing progression not just from the men's but the women's side of things as well is starting to really hot up. Terrible
Yeah,
English. Hot
those
up, heat up, heat up,
those
heat up.
those
Yeah.
three especially. Sarah, her execution and the way she holds her grabs, it's beautiful snowboarding to watch. And like you say, Maddie and Aspen doing those two doubles, that was progressive. And then Gayon, I don't know if you saw her latest clips where she's got 410s now. Like she just has bricks for days. So once you add Chloe to that mix, there's 4 or 5 of those girls that it's exciting. We're not going to know no one's really got it in the bag, that's for sure.
Yeah, which I think makes it so much more exciting. Like, no one's got a guaranteed win. So it means we're going to have to judge hard all the way through the next season. Makes our
Totally.
life tougher. But all right, so gone through pipe a bit. We'll leave. We've got more in the pipeline for that. I've skipped out a few of your points because we'll cover that in the pipe specific podcast episode. I feel like we kind of flicked through a little bit. We've kind of gone through a few of the favorite moments. Mine, I think, actual favorite moment for the entire season was Beijing, just because it felt all time. I was head judge, which is always quite nice. Like when things go to plan when you're the head judge. I'm sure you'll surely agree on that one. We had no complaints. Riders were happy. Bunch of MBDs. Kind of the perfect little comp package, I would have said, for Beijing. You got any other favorite moments of the season that we might have missed out on? Anything that were just like
Scotty and
either
Lux.
specific or general?
Yeah,
Lux?
Scotty and Lux. Yeah, that night half pipe final there, like the atmosphere, 10,000 people on the deck, night final. It's electric every year. And I know I said I like Lux slow style, but the Lux pipe and then that run that Scotty did there was like when he put that down, you're like, shit, he's gonna be unbeatable this season, like which Mickey, cab 14, front double 12, back 10, switch back 12. You're like looking at it going, like, all right, Scotty's back. And then, the next comp, it's suddenly, no, he's not. There's like three other guys doing runs to beat him in Aspen. So yeah,
Yeah.
it was good. That was one where you're just like, wow, we've hit a new level here. That was perfect. And then a few weeks later, we're back at new perfect. So yeah, that was good.
Yeah.
I liked it was the stepping stone to the future.
Was it Scotty and World Champs run one that snuck the switchback 12 tranny finder in last hit, which
I
looked
think so,
nigh
yeah.
on impossible to land? Yeah. I'm sure that was Scotty. I think that was my pipe highlight for the season just because it looked so unachievable. And he took off and we were like, there is no pipe left to land. And somehow found the very last bit of as the coping was dying down into the flat, somehow snuck it in, stomped it, and we're like, actually, that's pretty legit. If that was a planned part of the run, good use of pipe.
Yeah, and at that point too, we were still thinking, are these guys going to give us anything today? Because it's horrendous out there. So yeah, I think to do that run in those conditions was pretty good.
Sweet. All right, so the lowest point of the season. Do you want to go first, or
You can.
we kind of touched on? Well, so my lowest point was Calgary. I think just first time head judging section by section and just understanding the actual mathematical brain fuck that it is trying to manage
Mhm.
7 different contests in one go of like section 1, section 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, plus the composition guys, and trying to keep an eye on every single section and make sure it comes out nice with the maths. And I think for me that was a few bits that just different points to focus on as a learning curve. The end result was great. It was just that kind of process to get to the end result, I think, was the bit that we messed up a little bit with Judd's run. That should have had a few more points on the board, but it was just that fast paced 10 to 15 seconds of scoring time post run. That was kind of my like little professional low point of the season. Didn't feel like we fully nailed it. I think we nailed the podium, but there's a few bits earlier on I kind of wish we could have gone back and spent a bit more time on those key runs, but time is always the essence. And my personal low point of the season was just spending so much bloody time on the road. I spent 148 days away from home this season, and which is cool. It's awesome. It's great to get to travel, especially with a good bunch of friends. But that's my hotel rooms get tiring at the end.
Yeah,
But go on.
I think I don't know if I had it. I listen to you talk about section by section head judging. It's hard. You've got 15 seconds and there's 7, 8 comps going on, 9 judges. There's so much going on in that short period that you've just got to try and I don't know how get your head around it. But I don't know. I don't know if I had any competitive low points. I mean, we spoke Chloe before. It was tough at the time and it was a low point, but at the end of the day, we're paid to make tough decisions. Maybe not well, but we're paid to make tough decisions in the spur of the moment. And like I said, I like looking back on that last week. I still back that decision. I've had a lot more over my career that have been a lot tougher. Whether it be for a win or a third place or something that I've thought have been a lot closer and a lot tougher than that one where I could have changed my mind afterwards. Looking back at that, I wouldn't change my mind. So I don't know if I've got a competitive low point of the season. And then I would say I probably definitely share yours. Personally, the personal low point would be the lack of time at home, the time away from my wife and kids. And, I think be nice in a perfect world to have the budget there to be able to fly them in to watch a final every now and again. And then, spend a few days after the comp there soaking it in and riding the resort as opposed to, bang back on a plane, back to my real job, back into the swing. So I'd love to have the family around a little bit more, whether it be on the road or back here.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's the It's the tough part that like no one really kind of sees because it does look like the dream job, but you're just like actually time away. And it sucks at this point because we've seen the schedule for next December, January, February, and it doesn't look like that low point's going away anytime soon. But I
No.
guess at least it's condensed into like 3 months of intensity, and then we can just switch off and dial away.
Totally. Well, it's so intense that even those of us that want to be at every one can't physically. Like the schedule's so tight, we can't. There's big airs and pipes running simultaneously. So no matter we're busy. I think when you look at look at that schedule.
Yeah, I think it's something like 12 out of 13 weeks. I think we've got an event. I think it's literally the Christmas week and the week before the Olympics might be the only 2 weeks off that there's not. Like, it's awesome for the snowboarding world because there's so much places to watch it. Like, you
Yeah,
can dial into snowboarding any time of the day. If you got a
totally.
VPN and switch to Australia, and you can watch it on YouTube for free. So there you go. There's
Yeah.
the little the sneak shout out. That is the way. That is the. Everyone moans about not being able to watch the World Cups, but if you have ExpressVPN, and this probably should be a future sponsor, if you have ExpressVPN, switch to Australia, you can go to YouTube, put in Fizz Snowboard, and everything's live. Free of charge, minus the VPN cost. That's the way. I actually found World Cups easier to watch than Snow League this year, so that was kind of a semi little tick for Fizz.
Milano-Cortina, that's the next big scene. The Olympics are coming, a dream so keen. So tune in close, get the lowdown for real. Behind the scenes of snowboarding, how it all feels.
But right, so as we mentioned, we're building up to those Olympics in Milano-Cortina next February, and we're going to run like a little continuous Olympic excitement meter as we progress through the season. We'll see how myself and Beggsy's excitement progresses or absolutely drops away as we progress through. Let's go 1 to 10. Let's talk this like a section in a slopestyle course. I'm kind of feeling a solid 8.3 at the moment. I think we're far enough out of the season and away from the PTSD. The hype's starting to get real. I think we're not quite in NBD territory. I'm sure we'll kind of get there if things go to plan, but I'm feeling like a solid like switchback 2-2 on a waterfall rail is where I'm at. 8.3 out of 10. Which it
Solid.
feels rogue to assign a number just off the top of my head, but let's go with that.
Yeah, well, that's game to assign a number because I'm like, where do I sit on that? There's pipe, slope, and big air, and some of it's nerve
Yeah.
wracking if everyone lands their runs on the given day. But I'm kind of with you. I'm mid to high eights. Yeah, let's say an 8-8. Like I'm
If you're going
confident.
high
I'm really
eights,
happy with. Yeah, I'm happy with how last season went. Like I think, especially when we got the crew together in Aspen and Corvach, like everyone's dialed, and I don't think we've been as prepared so far out, and so we've everyone's training, everyone's dialed in, and then we've still got the run-in season to go. So that's exciting. So it'll keep me high for
yeah,
now. The nerves will come
you
in
do make
closer, and
a
I'll drop.
oh, yeah, check the Apple Watch heart rate close to the time. But you do make a good point. Like when we went into the Beijing Olympics, because both of us were there, that whole 2 seasons, the whole Olympic qualification period before was fucked because of the whole COVID situation. Like you were supposed to be judging, couldn't travel out of Australia as much. Like the amount of comps you got to judge on the run up was way different. We never really. I think we had one full panel event, which was 2 weeks before in Aspen, I believe. And then we might have had Larks as well, but we never had full kind of squad time for that Olympic crew for Beijing to really get to grips with it, chat it through, chat to the riders. It was just, but I think we're way more prepared this time. And the world of snowboarding seems to be in a very solid place as well. So we've got, 7 World Cups to keep dialing things in before we get to go.
Yeah.
Can't
I
wait
think
for
you've hit
the
it there. That
follow.
number's pure excitement. Up there, we're ready. We just want to see it primed.
Do we need to break this down in criteria for the future? We'll have like an excitement level, an anxiety level, a fear level. Um, Yeah, I reckon you're right. I think closer to the time, I reckon that's going to drop a little bit, and it'll be that nerves will start to kick in because it is that big show. We've all got that memory of Beijing, and it can't go worse.
Yeah, like anything, we just want to get it right, I guess, but we just have a hell of a lot more eyes on us and a lot more armchair critics to do
Yeah,
our job for us on the online. But I'm confident,
yeah, but at
quietly
least those
confident.
those armchair critics can just dial into the On the Knuckle podcast, learn a little bit more, and be correctly critical rather than just listening to various commentators and just spouting their views and opinions. So we might be in a better place. if people keep listening to On The Knuckle, as a little shameless plug before we go into the outro. But I think that wraps us up nicely for episode 1, which is really exciting to get the first episode done, because this is, something we talked about 2 seasons ago in the making, to try kind of bring this podcast, give it a little bit behind the scenes, kind of drum up some excitement around the World Cup tour, especially around the Olympics. So I'm stoked that we've got this going, and we're moving. So Beggsy, any last thoughts before we sign off for the night or the morning, because you're on the other side of the world?
No, I'm excited. It's been good. Like you say, we've been in the off season. It's been beach time, and we're just prepping for winter, but it hasn't really started to kick off yet. So it's good to sit and reminisce on some snowboarding. I'm looking forward to some more chats now. Actually, I'm glad we kicked it off.
But so thank you very much for listening to that first episode. If you've enjoyed it, be sure to give it a like and all subscribe on Spotify. Make sure you follow us on Instagram at On The Knuckle, and pick us some questions if you've got any thoughts. As raw as you want them to be, we're more than happy to answer any questions about judging snowboarding in general. Both Beggsy and I are in here for the long haul, and our next episode, I think we're going to deep dive into big air to kind of go into a little bit of detail, take it through comp by comp through the whole season. But it's been a pleasure to bring the first ever On The Knuckle episode to the world, and I'm going to say a big thanks to Beggsy, because we are pushing this from opposite time zones. Well, if you've got any questions for the Olympic head judge, just ping them through to @OnTheKnuckle, and we will we'll answer them accordingly. But in the meantime, thank you so much for listening. Stay tuned, hit subscribe, and if you can, go get a little shred in, whether you're down under for the summer or domes and dry slopes. But we're stoked to have you here. No idea really how to fully sign this one off, except peace and shaka, and we'll catch you in the next episode. Ciao for now.
Guys.